Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Scots Scheme with Coach Tony Jennison. The Scots Scheme is a weekly program that gives you, the fans, the opportunity to ask the Macalester head coach questions about the Scots, football or sports in general, or just seek some of his wisdom that he has out there. This week we have an exciting program as the team heads into its bye week, looking to make some changes that are going to improve its offense and get a little bit more oomph out of them, let's just say. So let's get right to the Scots Scheme.
Okay, we want to welcome back Coach Jennison this week. Coach, you're starting out. Well, first of all, let's begin with talking about injury and team updates that you may have for us.
We got pretty banged up in the game against Hamline. They're a talented, athletic, physical football team. So we do have some injuries that we think are not going to be season-ending. But some guys that are out right now, and we're kind of waiting on doctor reports and stuff like that to see what the next step for them is going to be. We're hopeful that a few of them will be back for the Grinnell game, but again, time will tell.
And kind of the bye week, I'm assuming, gives you a little more time to let those kind of heal there.
It does, and we've got a few guys that we're holding out of practice right now, just because they need a little bit of rest, and they've got a little bit of swelling, and maybe a knee or a quad or whatever it might be. And then there's others that definitely cannot practice right now just because of their bodies need to rest. So it is a good time for the bye week, no question about it.
You're starting out so far 0-2 this season. In the big scheme of things, this really doesn't matter as much for you because you're in the conference, and this is really where your big games are at. So are you looking at this and saying there's some advantages in the point of you're not really as concerned about these particular losses at this point?
No question that our focus is on our conference schedule, and we make a concerted effort to play a challenging non-conference schedule. There's an argument out there, and there's some people close to our program that would like to see us play teams that have smaller rosters or less talent, but we choose to play teams that will challenge us because I think it in some ways it exposes us a little bit. We figure out sooner rather than later what our weaknesses may be, what our strengths may be, and it helps us prepare for the conference schedule in that regard. Realistically, we're not a whole lot different than we were last year at this point. We were pretty fortunate to beat Carleton last year with the game coming right down to the wire and having a really great defensive stop in our territory, and then kind of a miracle pass and an amazing kick to win that game. And actually, I thought we competed better against Hamline this year than we did last year. Now, last year the score was a little bit tighter, but this year I felt better about the game than I did last year.
In looking at last week's game against Hamline, it was kind of similar to the way that the Carleton game had come down. Very close at halftime. In the second half, they get a little bit of momentum going on and kind of take control of the game. Are there things that you're looking at, or something that you're seeing that says this is kind of why they're getting the momentum at that point?
Well, right now we're trying to figure those things out. One of the things that I look at as a head coach is maybe we're not in as good a condition as we need to be. So we've challenged the young men in our program about that. And last night they actually we conditioned after practice and had a really good session. And they actually wanted to do a couple of extra reps, which made us late for dinner, unfortunately. But something to learn from. So yeah, we're trying to figure those things out, and you're always, as a coach, I think you're always looking within about what can you do to put our players in the best position to be successful, and certainly conversations we have daily around here.
What were some key takeaways that you took away from last week's game?
Well, on the positive side of things, we've got a team that competes, and we played against probably one of the best defenses we'll see all year, if not the best. I mean, they have some real talent on that defense, and not to mention potentially maybe the best running back we'll see all year too. I mean, Austin Duncan is a stud. I mean, he is a great back, and I thought we did a really good job at containing him. So I was really excited about the play of our special teams for one. which made more big plays. We also were 2 for 2 in kicking attempts with a field goal and extra point, where we were 0 for 2 in the first week, so that was good to see. I was happy to see our defense be able to contain Duncan a little bit with the running game, because I think in last year's Hamline game, I think he had 240 yards or something along those lines, and he had 30 carries against us. He did have 120 yards, but a 4.0 clip, I think, is pretty good against arguably the best back we'll see all season. So I thought those things were good. Offensively, we did make improvements in some areas, and obviously there's still areas that we need to clean up. So there are things to take away, and again, I think for me the biggest was that we competed, and we played physical too. We didn't back down when, with a very physical, athletic team. We did our best to compete with them, and now we just need to clean some things up. So we're working on that right now.
In watching last week's game, I thought you guys did a really great job with Duncan, and the fact that, he got some yards, but he had to work for those. Nothing came easy to him.
Yeah, I agree. I thought it was a very physical game, and I thought our defense did a really nice job containing him. And my guess is he was probably pretty sore, or probably still is a little bit sore after carrying the ball 30 times, and he was in there right till the end. So yeah, we're certainly proud of how we contained him. Now there's other areas where, because maybe he was our focus, we, didn't do as well in the passing game in certain areas, and it's things we need to clean up. But as I said before, we're certainly aware of those, and we're working on those this week.
I'm sure after he ran 30 times, he wasn't thinking he just had 120 yards. He was trying to, that's like a 250-yard day for him normally. So
usually
that kind of carries. With Zandy not being at 100% for you right now, are you expecting your running backs to kind of step up, the guys behind him to step up more, or is this really the whole offense needs to do that?
To me, it's the whole offense. It's everyone needs to do their job and do their very best to help us move forward, whether it's an offensive lineman, a receiver, a tight end, a fullback, a quarterback, whatever it is. Everyone needs to be on the same page and needs to help us move forward. And we're certainly working on those this week. An area that we've talked a lot about is penalties. We've really hurt ourselves with penalties, and so that's something our coaches are addressing this week. We're doing a little something today that's a little different that we haven't done in a while, but to kind of emphasize the mental part of the game and making sure we're not having some of those silly penalties like we have had. So again, getting back to your original question, Rob, I do believe it's an area where with Zandy not in, which impacts our team, because he's a really talented player, and he brings a spark to our offense. He really has the respect of the players, and everyone loves watching him run because of how dynamic he is. But it's really everyone that needs to step up their game when he's not in there.
I'm kind of curious from the physical standpoint for him in particular is that because he hasn't he hasn't been hit really in either of these first two games. So does he come in a little fresher in that sense for you when it's mattering most to you?
Maybe. There's the argument about being a little rusty, and then on the flip side, maybe a little fresh too. So I think with Zandy, he's been hit a little bit in practice, not a whole lot. But we feel as though, when he has stepped in practice, he's looked pretty good. He looks pretty fresh, and so I would lean towards the side that he is going to be a little fresher than everybody else, and maybe have a little hop in his step. At least that's what I'm hoping for anyway.
With your team in the bye week this week, what's the kind of preparation that you do? What do you ask of your players during this particular week?
It's really the same as any other week for the most part. We're not practicing on Friday, and we're not playing a game on Saturday. On Monday, we basically just had kind of what we call a mental day, where the young men in our program, they lifted a little bit, and they did yoga actually, and some of them swam too. But we didn't have any team meetings or anything like that. So it's our normal 3 practice days a week, which is what we're doing here, at least in pads. That's what we're doing this week. So we're just trying to get better. I don't think it's anything extremely different than usual. It's just a matter of, again, trying to get better at every opportunity, which is what we're challenging our players with this week.
with your team in the bye week this week, what are some keys that you're working on for your offense to try to get them on track?
Well, as I'd said before, we're looking to eliminate those penalties. So again, Coach Davies has got a good plan today for some of that stuff. And really, it's about execution. So we haven't been executing consistently. There are times where we execute well, and we have success. We move the ball. We pick up first downs and whatnot. We complete passes. We open up big holes for our running backs. And then there are times where we're not executing well, whether the protection breaks down, whether it's an errant pass, whether the receivers are not breaking at the right yardage or finding space to get open, whatever it might be. So it's really just a focus on executing a little bit better. And so we're trying to do more team reps this week. We're trying to keep it competitive. We cannot, as a team, just go out there and show up and expect to get better. That's not how it works. Again, we need to do our very best at every opportunity, which means going out there with the mindset that, I'm going to work hard today to get a little bit better individually, which if every individual on our team is getting better, it's helping the team get better. So that's our focus this week is trying to get everyone to improve a little bit here and there, and we are trying some unique things practice-wise to try to change it up and create a little more competition or a little bit more energy.
I'm curious from your standpoint, because it's easy for most people to look from outside the program and say, okay, well, let's start looking at their new quarterbacks kind of thing. How satisfied are you so far with the play of Christian and Alec at this particular point?
I think we all know that there's room for improvement there. With Alec, it was kind of a unique situation. He had an injury to his elbow that made it hard for him to throw. We saw that a little bit in the Carleton game, and I don't think he really kind of knew about the injury during that game, but it impacted him, his ability to throw. So last week you saw that when he was in there, basically there was no throwing. It was just a lot of smoke and mirrors and with motions and different things, and try to create some confusion on the defense while we ran the football, and it was actually pretty effective. So I've been real pleased with Alex moxie and his calmness, his ability to run the offense and whatnot. So he's going to continue to get chances. That's what we anticipate at this point. I think Christian had a much better game against Hamline than he did Carleton. He made more throws. He was over 50% in terms of completion rate, and just thought he did a much better job. Now, there's still areas that he needs to improve on, and he knows it. Nice part about it is he was in my office today, and he's more aware of the mistakes he's making now, because I think he's starting to grasp the offense better. He's starting to grasp the expectations within each play. So I do feel as though he's improving, and I thought there was great improvement from Carleton to Hamline in that regard. But he knows that we need him to get better. We need him to continue to make strides, and he'll readily admit that, and we talked about that today. But the nice part about it is, again, he is aware of it. He doesn't deny it, and he's working hard to get better. So we feel good that we're going to continue to get better as a team, and that our quarterbacks will continue to play better as a team as well.
Our fan questions this week begin with first from Tom from St. Paul, who asks, is it hard to be competitive in two different sports while you're in college?
I don't think so. I think we have a number of young men that do it here. We've got probably a handful of guys that are on the baseball team. We've probably got 7 to 10 young men on the track team right now. I think they do a great job with it. They're able to balance the challenging academics here at Macalester, and some of our best players have been two-sport athletes. Phil Wetterston is playing really well at the linebacker position right now, and he was a baseball player last spring. Trey Nowoshinsky runs track. Cash McGregor runs track. We had guys in the past that were track stars that were really good football players for us. So I think it's definitely doable. I know you're going to run into some coaches who think you need to specialize and that you should only be playing one sport, and I think you see that more so at the higher levels. my perspective is, who am I to tell a young man what he can and can't do and how he needs to spend his off season? Now, we're certainly hopeful that whatever his plans are, whether he's studying abroad or whether he's playing another sport or whether he's working out with our team, that he's going to work hard to stay in shape and be ready for the football season when it does roll around. And if you're playing another sport, it just means that you might not be doing the same workouts as our in the off season as our players are, but you're still being competitive and you are still working out. So I think it's definitely doable, and we certainly support people that want to play two sports here at Macalester.
I think some people might be under the kind of the wrong impression that here at Macalester, even if you were playing football, your time that you're occupying isn't just academically and football. There's 100 other things that guys are doing here at the school. So
yeah, at least in our team, we tend to get young men who are passionate about a lot of things, and they want to get involved in different clubs and organizations and have internships and whatnot. And again, that's the college experience. So we want to support the young men in our program. And sometimes that means they're late for practice or they have to miss practice occasionally. We have that. But again, who am I to say what they should and shouldn't be doing with their time? So we're certainly going to support the young men in our program that have those other passions. We just want to make sure that, when it is football time, they're very focused on what they need to do to help our football program move forward, and for them to be able to help us as well.
Mike from Minneapolis would like to know, do you ever have your own camps where you teach young players to improve their skills at all?
Nope. And the reason, sorry, Mike, but we're very busy, and we've just found that it's not a good use of our time to spend time with the younger players. Our summers are really busy these days, going to Ivy League camps and essentially elite camps for the real serious football players, but also young men that are really serious about their academics as well. So this past summer, our coaches were all over the country, and it made for a very busy summer, and we just don't really have the time to work youth camps. Now, I have in the past, and I'm not opposed to doing that, but it's definitely would need to be. We're not going to organize it because it just takes too much time. But I definitely do it, but it would just need to be something that fits into our schedule. I would not recommend our coaches do it because I want them to have time off. So that's the honest answer there. It's probably not the right one, but it's the honest one.
Hey, you only have so much hours in a day, so there's no doubt about that.
Know your strengths, know your weaknesses, right?
Jackie from St. Paul asks, with all the discussions about concussions in football, would you allow your own son to play? Because it seems unsafe to her.
My son is playing football. It's his first year. He's 11 years old, a sixth grader. He's playing a running back position and really enjoying it. And to me, football meant so much to me. I'm pretty confident I probably had a couple of concussions throughout my time in football. Back then, there was really not an emphasis on it, and I don't think they were diagnosed as quickly and as much as they are today. But I believe that football really can give people a meaningful, rewarding experience that lasts them their entire life. My high school experience, even my youth days were great. I loved it. It was a lot of fun. But my high school experience, I'm still friends with all my high school teammates. I think the big emphasis needs to be on safety and the proper teaching of how to tackle and how to run the ball. And obviously the helmet companies are continuing to push to make sure that the equipment is safer. So to me, yes, I do let my son play football, and in all honesty, I'm really not concerned about that sort of thing. I know injuries are going to happen, and I just don't get too worried about it because I think the benefits far outweigh the injury aspect of it.
There seems to be such a discussion about that just because, do you feel like it's the extreme cases that are getting most of the attention and that's kind of adding to the hysteria about it, do you think?
Sometimes I think that. I think we do a really good job around here with our, nowadays it's so different. You have to start the season off by taking an impact test and get a baseline, and when you do sustain a concussion, which it's really subjective, because there's really no way to say for sure that someone's had a concussion, but anytime we are in question of it, we'll make our players go through our concussion protocol. And Paula Nappig, our head athletic trainer, knows more about that stuff than I do. I just listen to Paula, and she tells me, where they're at in that return to play protocol. But essentially, they need to be symptom free for X amount of time, and then when they are, they can get on a bike or lightly jog or something. And if they continue to be symptom free, they can kind of move through a protocol. So someone's out, if there's even a thought of them having a concussion, they won't be basically near a football field for a significant amount of time. So I think we do a good job with that, and making sure that we are being safe. And in today's day and age, it's the right thing to do, so I'm not sure where the original question was, but overall, I think that we're very sensitive to it here, and that's good. And I think more people are sensitive to it. It seems as though in football these days, at least in the college football, and I talk to some high school coaches too, that people are very aware and sensitive to it, which is again, it's a good thing. So as long as people are sensitive to it and they're teaching the proper techniques in terms of tackling and playing the game, I think it's safe. That's my opinion.
David from Bloomington asks, Macalester really seems to be behind football nowadays. How does you feel that you've changed the culture of what has gone on here at the school? If I can speak correctly.
Yeah. I really don't think it's me. I think it's been an institutional wide thing. I think it comes from many people, coaches, players, family members, parents, administrators, the other coaches in our department, people around campus. And really, I think what we did above and beyond, honestly, we really invested in people. We invested in relationships. We knew that in order to build something special, we would need many people on board. We knew that we would need many people to grab an oar and start rowing, and maybe that's just because I know I'm not as skilled enough to do everything myself, but I knew that we'd need the help from parents, we need the help from team members, we need the help from people across campus, we need the help from our alumni. And I think what we've done is we've really invested in relationships with all those different groups, so that people feel close to our program. They appreciate what's going on, and they want to help in whatever capacity they can, whether that's an alumnus who can speak to a recruit of ours about the business world and their success in it, or whether it's a parent who helps with a post-game meal that really helps our team, or whether it's a faculty member that meets with a hotshot recruit about a chemistry degree. There's so many people that invest in this football program that those relationships are really critical to us. And so I'd say above and beyond anything else, that's what we've done a really good job of, is investing in all those relationships, so that, again, people want to lend a hand. And I think that that's what's really special about our program now, is that there's so many people that are connected to it because they've helped, that it really creates a pretty unique environment.
Everybody feels like they have a stake in what's going on, kind of thing.
I believe so.
Nice. Our last question is from Terry from Richfield, who would like to know what it's like to recruit for Division III football.
That's a good one. Well, first of all, what type of Division III program? Because there's so much diversity within Division III. And I've recruited at different types of schools. My last job when I was at Macalester College in Ohio, we basically start recruiting after the season starts, and definitely after the holidays, because you get a little break with the holidays. And I remember bringing in, the head coach still owes me, now that I think of it, Todd Glazier, you call him up at UW Eau Claire, he still owes me a steak dinner because I brought in the most recruits that year, but it was like 22, 23, 24 recruits were here at Macalester, and that was 3-4 months of work. Here at Macalester, we have 4 full-time football coaches, and in addition to some part-time coaches that help us with recruiting as well, that work about 20 months in a recruiting cycle. and we bring in about 20 recruits. So there's discrepancies. Division III is so diverse that it really depends upon what type of institution you're talking about. Here at Macalester, being a really high academic institution, Macalester being one of the most selective institutions in the country, it's very challenging to recruit here. Again, we work about 20 months in a recruiting cycle to bring in about 20 players. Because we're typically, the hard part for us is we can't just go to a high school football game and say, oh, I want that guy, and that guy. It doesn't work that way. We can go to a high school football game and not have anyone on a particular team that we can recruit because of the strict academic standards here. And even if we could recruit them, on average, we're going to be more expensive than other schools in this area just based on how we do our financial aid policies. Macalester meets 100% of need, which is great, except that everyone who is recruited by Macalester is basically one of the top students in their class. And when they apply to other academic institutions, and there's a lot of good ones here in the state of Minnesota, those other institutions are going to offer them really significant merit-based scholarships where Macalester's not, so that can create a discrepancy in the financial aid packages. So we've seen when we recruit against other schools here in the great state of Minnesota, it's not uncommon for us to be anywhere from $2,000 to $20,000 more expensive per year, and I would say on average it's probably closer to 10 on average. Again, it really depends upon the family situation. So again, there are challenges at a school like Macalester that other schools don't have because of the strict academic standards and then our financial aid policies as well. So you'll see some Division III schools that bring in 80 freshmen per year, 100 freshmen per year. We bring in 20, and so it's just different. So it's the biggest challenge that we have at Macalester is recruiting. And just look at history. There's reasons why we've never had a very large roster here at Macalester. It's not because of poor recruiting or poor coaching. It's just because there are hurdles here that other schools don't have. So what is it like to recruit at the Division III level? Again, I think that depends upon what school you're talking about. But here at Macalester, it's probably the most challenging part of the job, but I love it. I really enjoy getting to know the young men and their families and who they are, where they come from. I've had my days as a coordinator with the X's and O's and trying to figure out how you're going to stop a certain run, and that's great. I'm not passionate about that anymore. I like to pass that off to our other coaches, but I am passionate about the recruiting aspect. I really enjoy getting to know young men and their families. And the cool part about it, working here at Macalester, we get to know some truly exceptional people who come from great families. Now they come from all over the country, but it's inspiring to get to know these individuals and to sell your football program to them and to sell them on Macalester College what this academic institution can do for them, and then really to help them through the admissions process, financial aid process, so they understand how things work, so they're in a position to make an informed decision. But I enjoy the recruiting process. It's something I'm very passionate about, and I think we're getting pretty good at it too. That's my take, but hope that makes sense.
I'm assuming that at a lot of Division III schools, a person could still get an entire scholarship for playing football, but that's not true here, I would assume.
Well, at Division III schools, you shouldn't be getting any athletic money.
Oh, okay.
Now, I know there's some schools that give out leadership scholarships and whatnot, and those just happen to go to talented athletes on some occasion, but no, here at Macalester, everything is need-based, 100% need-based. Again, we're only one of 70 schools in America that meet 100% in need, and so most schools in the country are going to do it very differently than we do. So it's just another hurdle in the process that we have to educate people, and we need to help them through that process. But but if we're good at our job, we're not recruiting young men who are looking for the cheapest option. We need to recruit the types of families that are looking for, a world-class education, one that can take you anywhere you want to go, one where you're going to be surrounded by people who come from all over the country, from very diverse backgrounds, who are extremely intelligent, extremely motivated academically, and want to do great things in the world. So, we can find young men who are looking for Macalester. It's just a little bit harder because you gotta sift through a lot of junk, and you need to find the families that are looking for Macalester, and that's hard because we are more expensive, and everybody knows money talks. So it's a challenge, but a good challenge to have.
Excellent. Thanks for joining us this week, Coach.
Thank you, Rob.
We want to thank Coach Tony Jennison for joining us on the Scots Scheme this week. If you have your own questions you'd like to ask the Macalester Scots coach, please send them to us at TonyJennison@minorleaguesportsreport.com. That's Tony Jennison at minorleaguesportsreport.com. Please have your questions to us by Tuesday at noon for us to be able to use on that week's program. We want to thank you for joining us this week. I'm Rob Paneer, the managing editor of the Minor League Sports Report, and we'll see you next week on the Scots Scheme.